Derek was a typical wealthy boy. His father was the mayor of a small town. Although power is the same everywhere, whether it's a small town or a big one, very often power, money, and cruel crimes go hand in hand. However, with Derek's father, Richard, things were different. He was an honest man. He earned his wealth absolutely legally without committing any crimes. He couldn't stand corruption and punished it harshly himself. He started from the very bottom. First, he was an activist in the local party. Then he made his way into the deputies of the local administration. Then further and further. He really wanted to improve the lives of the citizens of his town, as he himself was a resident who was once a child, a teenager, a young man, and went to school, college, and work every day. And he saw the living conditions with his own eyes. Under his rule, the condition of the road significantly improved. Many schools, kindergartens, and houses were repaired. Many closed-tack playgrounds and parking lots were built. The townspeople trusted him and respected him. And when he ran for mayor of the city, almost all the residents unanimously chose him. Richard had been married for many years. For over 20 years he had been married to one woman, Abigail, whom he met in his youth while studying at the institute. They got married right after graduation and lived for several years for themselves without children. Derek was born 5 years later. Abigail tied her life to a fast food restaurant chain. She turned out to be a good businesswoman. She was not one to stay in one place, constantly trying something new, interesting, improving the system. That's why her cafe remained afloat to this day. When Derek was born, Abigail was out of commission for a while. She didn't want to hire a nanny to help her with the baby. Richard asked her, "Darling, you've just started your career, and Derek doesn't require much care. Hire a nanny and develop your business yourself." "No, darling, how many cases have there been when a teenager starts to complain that his parents paid little attention to him from childhood, and they work themselves, and then begins to blame everything on the parents? Besides, I've hired a good manager. At the end of the day, I personally go and check the results of his work. I keep a close eye on everything. As long as he inspires confidence in me, Derek will grow up. I'll take him to kindergarten and I'll go back to work." "Well, look, if you want it that way, fine." The boy really didn't require much care, but as Richard and Abigail later recalled, they regretted very much that they didn't teach the boy independence and basic respect for others from an early age. "Derek, have you eaten?" Abigail asked. "Yes, I'm done." The boy got up from the table and was about to leave. "And don't you want to say anything to Mom?" Richard angrily asked his son. "What should I say?" As if the child didn't understand. "You should say thank you when you leave the table." "Or thank you, it's up to you." "Thank you," muttered Derek. "And why in that tone, as if you're doing a favor?" "Mom tried, she cooked. And put the plate in the sink, we don't have servants." "Richard, stop it. I'll clean up myself, it's not hard for me. There you go again. I'm telling you, this is upbringing. You need to teach from childhood, otherwise it will be too late." "I feel sorry for him, he's still little." "Well, how little?" "He's trying to be rude to his parents. It means it's time to educate him." Derek grew up, changed. Richard became more and more famous and rich, and along with him the living conditions changed. Before Richard became mayor, the family lived in a 3-room apartment. After Richard became a deputy in the local administration, he bought a luxurious, expensive Lexus and built a 3-story mansion to position obliges, you know. The family flew to other countries, to the sea almost every month. Derek saw all this and understood, when a person has a lot of money, he can afford any entertainment. The main thing is to have money. And he began to spoil. Since he was 12 years old, when he entered the 6th grade, he began to skip classes, spoil relations with classmates. He considered himself above others, began to be rude to teachers. Yes, to the point that he could even threaten them. In this case, the teachers complained to his father, and he, in turn, gave him a good scolding. "What are you up to again?" Richard shouted at his son. "I'm not doing anything. They're all lying. You're constantly lying to me. How much longer will I have to be embarrassed for you? I'll deprive you of everything you have. I'm warning you for the last time. Fine." "What do you mean, fine? Can't you at least apologize, show remorse? You've become completely brazen, I see." "I repent, that's it. Get out of my sight. God forbid, if the teacher complains to me again, you're done for. I won't joke anymore. For a while this helped. Classmates stopped talking to him because of his arrogance. He was almost an outcast in the class. But he didn't care at all. He wasn't upset about it. Time passed. The boy turned 17. He finally graduated from the 11th grade, and it was time to apply somewhere. He chose the economics faculty. His abilities allowed him to do so. The boy dreamed of opening his own business after graduation. True, what kind of business he didn't know yet. But he knew only one thing: his father would definitely help him. He just could not help. After all, he's the mayor. He has colossal connections. Well done, son, praised him Abigail. Once you graduate, your father and I will help you stand on your feet. Of course we'll help. But you also need to make an effort yourself. You can't expect everything to be handed to you on a silver platter. You need to have something in your head to achieve something in life. They'll teach you everything. Right, Derek. Education will always come in handy. They'll teach if you want to learn. And I do want to. I understand that I'm interested in this and I need it. You're thinking right. Economics is a top priority in the country now. 3 years of study at the institute flew by unnoticed. Despite his spoiled character, the boy began to wise up a little and started studying well. Derek was one of the best students in his class. He was, until one day a curse invaded his life. In life, it's always like this. Some people, for example, can nurse a drink while others get wasted. People unfamiliar with this start blaming weak willpower, scolding for timidity and immaturity, not realizing that it's all about chemical dependency. The kind of dependency that hooks a person right away. And it was precisely this dependency that became the reason for sharp change in Derek's character. Richard had hoped that his son had come to his senses. After all, he started studying and the teachers praised him. How did he suddenly change? No, it wasn't just insolence or rudeness. Derek began to show excessive irritability, literally out of nowhere. He could either not sleep for a long time or fall asleep even during the day, and it was his destructive dependency that ultimately led to tragedy. And it was fortunate that there were no casualties, but the lesson from his father was harsh, and it all started with the college party. Until recently, 20-year-old Derek had never tried smoking or drinking. He just wasn't inclined to it. Yes, he had a difficult character, but he didn't touch anything harmful until one day. In a club celebrating the end of a tough exam session, his classmate offered him a drink. Will you? The friend handed Derek a bottle. Oh, no. Why not? Drink. Life will seem different right away. I've never tried before, so you'll try now. Everyone started from this point. Or are you afraid of Daddy? The guy continued jokingly. I'm not afraid of anyone. Okay, maybe I'll relax. Derek agreed because he was already tired of constant stress. His nerves were acting up. And simple sleep or sports didn't relax him. But this did. He immediately felt an unprecedented surge of energy. From somewhere came the desire to joke and have fun. That day, he partied in the club until morning and returned home in a pretty intoxicated state. Richard was furious. Have you completely lost your mind? Got into the student life? Can't you live without going out and drinking? His mother, Abigail, stood up for her son. Enough, Richard. Remember yourself at that age. As if you never partied until morning. He used to go out for walks, but he never allowed himself to get drunk to such an extent. It's just irresponsible. With a slurred tongue, Derek mumbled, Dad, sorry, I overdid it. I won't do it again. I hope so. And now go to bed so I don't have to see you anymore. His father's command left the guy no choice but to obey. The next morning, he woke up with a terrible headache. His mouth felt dry and the smell coming from it was disgusting. Derek went to wash up and accidentally glanced in the mirror. He didn't recognize himself. Instead, he saw some unfamiliar guy, disheveled, with tousled hair, bags under his eyes, and a foggy gaze. Was this really him? And all because of one bottle? Luckily, there were no classes today. The teacher was sick and he had the day off. How to relieve this headache? He took a pill and went back to bed. He tried to distract himself with his phone, music, reading. He even tried to sleep, but the pain didn't go away. His condition resembled those famous spins, when your head spins for no apparent reason, although you're lying still. The unbearable dizziness made him nauseous, and he rushed to the bathroom. That's when he remembered the rule: treat like with like. His father had already left for work early in the morning, as did his mother. What to do? How to get rid of this stupid state? Maybe take a sip? Then it would be easier. In his father's bar, there was elite alcohol. The guy remembered what he'd been drinking and uncorked a bottle, poured some into a glass, and drank. It took literally 5 minutes for the liquor to take effect on his body. The headache finally subsided. Now he could get on with his day. Little did he know that his body had become addicted to alcohol, and he probably wouldn't do without it now. He tried to restrain himself, but he wasn't good at it. Now he drank almost every day, after classes, before bed, and after every Friday. And soon there would be the end of college, the submission of his thesis. He would definitely let loose then. The thesis submission was in a month. All this time the guy abstained, not consuming anything. He didn't want to mess things up and end college badly or not end it at all. For the whole month he worked on his thesis, corrected it, consulted with his supervisor. So far everything was going well, except that Derek couldn't sleep and often drank before bed. After taking it, he fell asleep instantly. Almost every day Derek's mother Abigail found empty bottles under his bed. She tried to talk to him, but it was in vain. "Derek, maybe you should see a specialist." "What do you mean? You're becoming an alcoholic." "It's very difficult to get rid of this disease on your own." "I'm not an alcoholic. So what if I drink sometimes, just to relax?" "It doesn't mean anything." "And what does sometimes mean?" "I find empty bottles under your bed every day. It's not normal." "You weren't like this before. Please, let's see a specialist." "I can't talk to you." Derek stormed out of the room and then out of the house. Abigail decided to immediately talk to her husband Richard. She knew he was a busy man, but this concerned their son and couldn't wait. To her surprise, her husband picked up the phone almost immediately. "What's wrong, dear?" "Something's wrong, honey. It's about our son." "What has he done now?" "Is he causing trouble again?" "Did the police bring him in again?" "No, he hasn't done anything yet." "If this continues, he will. He's become dependent. The last few months have been like that. I noticed it a long time ago. As long as neither you nor I can do anything about it, we'll have to wait." "Are you out of your mind?" "Wait for what?" "Wait until he realizes himself that there's a problem and he can't deal with it on his own." "Well, or until a tragedy occurs. God forbid." "Yes, okay, let's hope it doesn't end in tragedy." When Derek argued with his mother, he decided to go out for a drive. He took his father's car. This time, his father, for some reason, didn't take it and decided to walk in the key. Derek took a few bottles, got in the car, and went for a ride. It was deep autumn outside, and early darkness was already falling. The guy's vision was heavily blurred from the alcohol, and he could hardly see. He didn't even notice 2 children crossing the street at the traffic lights, returning from school for the second shift. He didn't even try to brake because he simply didn't see anyone. The guy felt a dull blow ahead and crashed into a pole. He didn't know that his criminal negligence would cost him dearly. Next to the scene of the accident was a police station, and the children who were hit, as the police later found out, turned out to be the children of one of the lieutenants. The rich kid could have fled, but he couldn't because he crashed into the pole himself. The children were taken away by ambulance, and there was blood around the pedestrian crossing and the car. But thankfully the children were fine. They didn't have any fractures, just bruises. There was only a mild concussion. However, things could have ended much worse. Senior Lieutenant Taylor couldn't determine the car's license plate because it was literally wiped out from the impact. But he and his colleagues knew what to do with the perpetrator of the accident, whose children were almost killed due to his fault. Taylor was ready to tear the perpetrator apart because he had almost no scratches, except for a minor bruise on his chin. Meanwhile, his children would spend several days in the hospital with concussion and bruises, and then a long moral recovery. People who witnessed this were almost scanning their words. Yes, the children were alive, but if not for the stupid drunk brat, the tragedy wouldn't have happened. Yes, he should be put behind bars for this, because everything is allowed. Daddy is rich. Derek was dragged out of the car and taken to the police station. They tried to find out what he was doing behind the wheel in such a state. The police just shrugged. Don't you see what car he's driving? Another drunken brat, son of a rich daddy. He just got unlucky that your kids were there. What's the point of talking to him? You know what to do with him. Usually, when a son or daughter of influential parents is involved in some accident, the victim becomes the perpetrator. Unfortunately, money rules everything in our world. Only this time, the victims of the accident were the children of a police officer, and the outcome for the guy could be lynching. The guy was brutally beaten, and they were about to deliver the final blow when he gathered his strength and hoarsely said, "I have the right to make one last call." "Who are you going to call?" "You'll see. Give me back my phone. You'll make the call under our supervision. Which number do you want to dial?" "Go to the contacts. It's labeled fathered." Taylor took the guy's phone and looked through the contacts, found the number labeled father and hesitated. The number was horribly familiar. He called over his comrades and showed them the contact. "So this is Richard Price, the mayor of our city. It turns out he's your father, huh?" "Yes, and you guys won't have it easy. You still don't know who you're dealing with. My father will skin you alive." The police officers started to get nervous. They didn't want them all to not only lose their careers, but also their ability to work at all. Can you imagine? The mayor of the city would arrive now, and he definitely wouldn't be pleased with them. For beating the son of such an influential person, Derek started to dial the number. About 3 minutes later, a displeased and surprised voice of his father was heard on the other end. "What's up? You've never called me just like that. Tell me, what have you done? You need to come to the police station." "Well, I never doubted that. What this time?" "I hit 2 little kids. I got beaten up for it. They turned out to be the children of one of the officers." "What?" Here Richard poured out such a stream of dirty curses and insults at the guy that even the policeman's ears folded. But they were sure he was just emotional. He would calm down now, and then start worrying about the fate of his offspring, and then it would be the end for all of them. However, that was not the case. Richard showed up at the station literally half an hour later, asked the duty officer where his son was, and who the officer was whose children he had hit. After getting the answer, he walked into the office, briefly greeted everyone. "Are you Senior Lieutenant Taylor?" "Affirmative." "Are these your children he hit?" "Yes." "Are they alive?" "Yes." "That's the most important thing. I'll send compensation. I'll send them to the best clinic to recover as quickly as possible." Taylor was very surprised. Another person in his place would have started lashing out for daring to touch his son, but Price wasn't like that. He was respected for a reason. He slowly turned to his son, met his drunken but frightened gaze, and slapped him hard. The guy was surprised and started to complain. "What's that for? And you're still asking? You hit a police officer's children. Forget about the police. Just think, you hit children. You're lucky they're still alive. Otherwise, I'd have killed you with my own hands. And all because of your drunkenness. How did you decide I was drunk? I'll hit you right now, you pup. And you're resisting. Damn, you reek of it from a mile away. Here's what I'll do. Document him. I'll take him, punish him my own way. We need to fill out a report. Will it take long? No, not really. Okay, fill it out. Do as much as you think necessary, and hand him over to me." When the report was done, Price took his son and drove him home in a taxi. His car was wrecked anyway. Damn, he shouldn't gone to work on foot. Then Derek wouldn't have taken the car, and wouldn't have gone drinking in that state. After bringing his son home, he cut off his wife's cries and threw him on the bed. The son started to complain. "Why so harshly? That hurt. That was still mild. You didn't deserve anything better." When morning came, a narcologist doctor stood by the guy's bed. Richard called him. The guy looked around in confusion and asked, "Dad, who is this? What does all this mean? I'm trying to give you one more chance, and I hope you'll straighten up after this. This is a doctor from the rehabilitation clinic. If you talk to him or resist, it's on you. I'll just send you to prison, and you'll serve your deserved punishment there." Okay, I'll talk." Derek was genuinely scared. The doctor started talking to the guy. He asked how long he had been using, when it started, what he felt when he didn't get it, and so on. The doctor understood, that his addiction was chemical, not psychological, and getting rid of such an addiction was a bit more complicated. Of course, necessary tests had to be taken to confirm the preliminary diagnosis, but the doctor was already sure. When the father asked the son, he didn't hesitate for a second. So what do you choose? Treatment or prison? Of course, treatment. Are you ready to go right now? I'm ready. The guy left the room accompanied by the doctor. Abigail watched her son leave with a sad look. It seemed like one more second and she would cry, beg not to take her son away. But Richard hurried to reassure her. Abby, don't worry. Everything's fine. He agreed to treatment himself. If he did it voluntarily, it means not everything is lost yet. It's for his own good. Otherwise, he would have had to go to prison. Don't say that. I don't even want to hear about it. Nevertheless, that's how it is. Our son committed a serious crime, and it's all because of his destructive addiction. Thank God the children are alive. If he can't handle it himself, he needs help. At least he realized that. Derek began his recovery journey by joining the 12 Steps program, where he shared the story of how his illness started and the circumstances surrounding it. He was surprised to hear similar stories from others, realizing that many, upon embarking on the path to recovery, initially believed their problems to be unique, unlike anyone else's. However, it turns out that's not the case. In most instances, it all starts with similar circumstances, eventually leading individuals down a similar path until they realize they need to do something about it. Fortunately, Derek wasn't in an advanced stage of his addiction. His treatment progressed faster and more successfully than others, partly because Derek himself wanted to overcome his dependency and start a new life, and he succeeded. After 6 months of treatment, Derek completely rid himself of his harmful addiction. He approached his father feeling refreshed and renewed, asking him to put a lock on the liquor cabinet in his presence, and not to mention alcohol at all. His father chuckled but agreed, adding, "If you want to start a new life, I'll help you with that. You aim to start your own business eventually, right? But no business starts without hard work. Money doesn't just fall from the sky, you have to earn it. It's a pity your mother and I didn't teach you this at a younger age. You know, what happened to you often occurs in wealthy families. Kids just don't know what to do with themselves. They have everything, delicious food every day, new clothes bought all the time, comfortable beds, trendy gadgets. It's called spoiled rotten. And so, kids like you and others like you start entertaining yourselves in such ways, indulging in all sorts of rubbish. And then their families pay the price. I decided that only hard physical work would help you not think about this rubbish. What do you mean, Dad? I'll get you a job at my place, at the car wash. Not as a manager or anything higher, but as a mechanic. You'll fix and even wash cars. You'll learn what hard physical work is like." I thought as much, I figured. Well, I'm not against it. I look at it differently now. There were others in the group just like me. Everyone had the same story. And some of them are mechanics, waiters, managers, and kids from wealthy families just like me. Well, that's good then. Derek started working as a mechanic. One day, a girl drove her car to him for repairs. Derek liked the girl, and it was evident she liked him too. It was only later that she found out Derek Price was the mayor's son. Until then, she had just been seeing him, chatting, joking around, and falling in love. Mia came from an ordinary family, and this car was a birthday gift from her father. Derek didn't hide anything from his girlfriend and told her everything, how he had been treated for addiction, how he almost ruined 2 children's lives. That's when Mia suggested, "I can see this guilt still haunts you. Why don't you go to that lieutenant's house and ask his children for forgiveness?" "That's a good idea, but for some reason, I'm nervous." "That's normal. Do you want me to come with you for support?" "Of course I want. It'll be easier for me." After finding out the address of the senior lieutenant, Derek and Mia headed to his house. The door was opened by the officer himself. He was very surprised. He didn't expect to see whom he saw at his doorstep. The person whose fault his children had been in the hospital for many days. But now he looked completely different. Yes, he had lost a bit of weight, but now he resembled a human being. It was evident he had changed, found a girl. The girl was beautiful. But why had he come to his house? What did he need? "Why have you come?" asked a shocked Taylor. I was treated for a long time, got a job, and completely changed for the better. But one thing still eats at me, that I almost ruined your children's lives. Until I ask them for forgiveness, I won't find peace." "They're in their room. I'll take you," said the shocked Taylor. "Do you want me to come with you?" asked Mia. "No need, I'll do it myself. I must talk to them." Taylor led Derek to the children. For the first time he saw them, two 12-year-old twin girls. They were fair-skinned. They looked at their uncle with incomprehension, who was sadly looking at them for some reason. Derek began to tell his story haltingly. Finally, when he finished his story, he said, "And now I've come to ask for your forgiveness for everything. I want to unload this burden. I'm glad everything turned out well for you. Please forgive me, girls." One of the girls approached the young man and, taking his hand in hers, said, "Why are you crying? You asked for forgiveness, which means we forgive you, so no need to cry anymore. Everything will be okay." The second girl came up to him and hugged him. Tears rolled down the boy's cheek, but now they were tears of joy, not sorrow or guilt. Now he could truly start a new life. Carefully, the father of the girls and Derek's wife, Mia, peeked into the room. The scene in the room was truly heart-wrenching. A crying young man and two girls embracing him. The daughters noticed him and suggested, "Dad, let Derek stay with us to have some tea." "Okay, sure. How about you, Derek?" "With pleasure. I can also tell you how I recovered and started a new life." During dinner, Derek reiterated everything he had told the girls. How his father persuaded him to seek treatment, how he struggled with his addiction for several months, and how his father sent him to work at the auto shop. Taylor made sure the young man had truly changed, that it wasn't just empty words. After dinner and tea were finished, Derek thanked the man and the girls, and, bidding them farewell, left with Mia for home. Taylor sighed deeply with relief and said, "Well, that's that," and went to bed. Entering the room, he took out a photo of Derek with his eyes gouged out from the drawer. Tearing it to shreds, he threw it away. Now he would have something to tell Derek when he returned from his night shift. "Mom, Dad, I want to tell you something," Derek said during dinner. "I'd like to propose to Mia." "What do you think?" "We're fine with it." "Why should we think otherwise?" asked Abigail. "Because she's from a simple family. Maybe you'll say I need someone of the same status as me?" "Don't be silly. You know how I feel about all this wealth," Richard frowned. "I would never have bought this huge house in my life. I see how hard it is for her to manage here. Even though she has a helper, it's not the same. It's just that my status obliges me. Everyone has it, but I won't. People will just laugh at me, say the mayor lives in a hovel. So we have all this," he gestured around their home. "If you love each other and understand that it's mutual and you're ready for a serious relationship, of course, get married." "Yes, son. Your father and I will always help you. And when you get married, you can come to our old apartment." "Why not? It's not bad at all, just needs some repairs and new furniture." "Of course. If I had been given a 3-room apartment back in the day, I would have been jumping for joy." "That's right," Abigail sighed. "Your father and I started out in a dormitory." "Richard, do you remember?" "Of course I remember. It's unforgettable. Shared kitchen, queue for the toilet, and constant cockroaches, screaming kids in the hallway, and a perpetually grumpy watchman. Oh, come on. It was such a happy time," she smiled contentedly. "Well, it was happy because we were young and our lives were just beginning. Nothing to be afraid of. Now our son is getting married, and I'll retire. We'll babysit grandchildren and live peacefully." "Oh, really? You retiring?" "I doubt it very much." "How will the city manage without you?" "That's right. I'm working with ordinary people now," Derek said. "I hear a lot of good things about you from them. Not everyone knows I'm your son. People are proud of you, praise you constantly. You have to be a decent person first and foremost for people to be pleased with you and remember you kindly. Not to flaunt wealth, but to think with your head, to strive for people. And you do the same, son. I believe you won't always work at the auto shop. Someday you'll have your own company or business. It doesn't matter what. You'll have people under you. Think about them first, and everything will work out well for you." "Thank you, Dad. You're really great. I have someone to look up to." I'm glad you understand that, Richard replied to his son. So, when should we expect the future daughter-in-law to visit? When you say so, I'll bring her to meet you. Let's meet tomorrow, Abigail suggested. I'll get ready. We'll sit down, talk. Maybe even start planning something for the wedding. The next day, Mia came to meet Derek's parents. Of course, she visually knew his father. The whole town knew him. His face was on posters, it flashed everywhere. But she met Derek's mother for the first time. The girl really liked Derek's parents. They decided to celebrate the wedding at a restaurant. Abigail advised them on which dishes to choose, how to decorate the hall, and other nuances of the celebration. As the evening drew to a close, Richard apologized and said he needed to go rest. Please forgive me. I would have stayed longer with you, but I can't. I have a headache. I woke up early today, got so much done, and tomorrow I have to get up early again. There's always so much to do. Mia, it was very nice to meet you. I really want to meet your parents and express my gratitude to them for raising such a wonderful child. I'm very glad my fool fell in love with you. Richard, I'm very glad to meet you too. Of course, go rest. I think we've already discussed everything. Good night. Good night, everyone. I'm leaving. Abigail stayed a little longer with the young couple, and then Derek drove Mia home. 2 months later, Maya and Derek became husband and wife. During this time, the apartment renovation was completed, new furniture was bought, and many different little things for comfort were purchased. After the wedding, they went on a seaside vacation. Derek kept his promise regarding alcohol. There were plenty of temptations both on the beach and in restaurants. Wherever they went, they were offered alcoholic drinks, but Derek didn't even touch them. When they returned home, Derek was in for a big surprise. His father decided not to torment the boy anymore and gave him the auto repair shop. Here you go, son, the beginning of your business. It's a good, well-established business. So manage it, expand. I wish you success. Derek didn't expect such a fabulous gift from his father. He even shed tears when Richard finished speaking. Derek rushed to hug him and gratefully replied, "Thank you so much. Honestly, I didn't expect it. I dreamed, hoped. But I never thought you would just give me your auto repair shop. You're my son, and the only one. Who else should I leave it to if not you? Everything I earned, as they say, by the sweat of my brow. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I won't let you down. I'll prove to you that I've changed and got my act together. I've known that for a long time. If I had doubted it, do you think I would have given you such a generous gift? You're a married man now, serious. So, take charge and be happy." Derek turned out to be a very good owner. He listened to all his father's words, which were primarily about the business. Derek tried to improve working conditions for his employees as much as possible. And after a few months, the employees began to talk among themselves that things had even gotten better under the new boss. Who would have thought that the boss's son would outdo him? Well, what does outdo have to do with it? He worked with us. He was in the thick of it. He knows all the nuances, so he arranged things so that we would be better off. All we have to do is work. And notice, there's more work now too. Of course there's more. People see that we have good mechanics. And why are the mechanics good? Because the pay is great, so people don't run around looking for other jobs, they all stay with us. Customers see this, they tell each other. And word of mouth, it's the best advertisement. A year and a half later, Mia gave birth to a girl, whom they named Betty. Grandmothers and grandfathers often take the child for the weekend to pamper her. This allows Mia to relax. Derek expanded his business, and now he has 3 auto repair shops across the city, which are very popular among the townspeople. In the future, he wants to open a parts store. Derek is a wonderful family man and loving father.